Okay, so here's the deal about feet. It is so important that all of your foot muscles are able to activate because they're the foundation that your entire body stands on. So if you are wearing shoes all the time, either shoes that have a lot of artificial support, shoes that are really squishy, shoes that like pull your feet and your toes together, basically a few things can happen. One of those things is that you lose the ability to naturally spread your toes. The second thing that could happen is you lose your natural arch strength in your feet. That's one of the reasons I like to work out barefoot personally, and why I encourage people to do that if they're comfortable doing so. The other thing that can happen is when you wear shoes that are really squishy, it can make your, essentially it's like wearing pillows on your feet and wearing a foam pad all the time. And if you've ever tried to balance on a foam pad, it's a lot harder than it is to balance on a hard floor, concrete or wood floor or something like that. So you're introducing this artificial constant amount of instability, and that's just going to cause a lot of problems from the ground up all day long. So obviously, especially in cold climates, we have to wear shoes. So we can't get away from wearing shoes. But the kind of shoes that you wear can make a really big difference. So when you get home, take your shoes off. But when you're not home, you could wear shoes that have a lot of toe room. Maybe consider buying wide shoes. Consider buying minimalist running shoes or tennis shoes that don't have a lot of artificial support in them. Now, there are brands that help you transition to wearing barefoot shoes, because if you've been wearing arch support for so long, all of a sudden you stop wearing arch support and you're going to have a lot more need to engage those arch muscles that you haven't had to for so long. So it's going to be really important to either buy a true minimalist shoe and kind of ease into wearing them more and more and more, kind of like as if you were strength training. You would just do a little bit more as you go to gain that strength slowly over time, because I don't want you to have foot pain either. And this can also cause like other leg tightness in your feet. But the other thing is that a lot of people have compensations in the way that they stand. So some people turn their feet naturally outward, some people turn their feet inward, and some people rotate their feet this way, some people rotate their feet this way. Now, first of all, if you're watching and paying attention to your feet, it's a lot easier to compensate that regardless of whether or not you're wearing shoes. But if you can really easily contact your entire foot to the floor, work on engaging those arch muscles, it's so much easier to turn on that whole foot. And now all of a sudden you have so much more support from the floor all the way up to your head. So there have been instances in some of the studies that I have referenced and read about this topic that show that certain things like even back pain or headaches or jaw pain can be related to the foot positioning and ability of the foot to contact all four corners of the floor equally. So that's why it's so important. And it's not only important to make sure that you're barefoot whenever possible, but it's also important to make sure that you're being intentional about it if you just take your shoes off and you continue walking in your bad patterns, that's not going to help anything at all. It's going to probably make it a lot worse. But if you take your shoes off and then you start to feel your feet ground through all four corners of your feet equally down into the floor, you're going to have such an easier time actually being able to do everything. You're going to have so much more stability through your feet because you have so many more contact points, and you are also going to probably notice less knee pain. Sometimes the only problem with a patient or client with knee pain is simply the fact that they're not contacting the ground properly. So if you fix that, you can fix so many other things. So it's one of the most foundational things to work on, one of the first things that you should do. And it's really easy to do. You just don't wear your shoes at home and start working and introducing that slowly into your, daily life, your routine. And it makes such a big difference without a whole lot of effort. As long as you're intentional about it and you're standing up and you're feeling those feet grounding into the floor, you're working on arching those feet naturally, and just being intentional about it is going to make all of the difference in the world. And as you get acclimated to that, you could start doing certain lifts with stocking feet. You could start to walk outside in the grass in maybe your yard barefoot, as long as you know that it's safe, obviously. You could just start introducing shoeless living in more areas. This is also why it's really important not to wear flip-flops, because if you're always gripping with your toes, you have this toe grip stance, it's going to cause problems all the way up. Your toes are supposed to be able to spread, and most people have lost most of their ability to do that because they're always wearing shoes that pull their toes together, and they've grown up wearing these shoes all the time. This is one of the reasons why I have my kids wear barefoot shoes from Jana and Jewel, and I wear barefoot shoes, or I size up my shoe if I'm wearing like boots or something, which works well because then you can wear big thick socks here in Minnesota anyway. But also, besides not wearing sandals, it can really just be helpful in general life that if you are not wearing shoes more often, it's a lot more likely that you'll be able to step outside onto the earth and and practice natural grounding as well, which has a lot of other health benefits, and there's really no replacement for it. Though you could consider purchasing a grounding mat. Essentially, our whole bodies are made up of electrons and neutrons and protons, essentially. And if we never, and so we're electric, we have electricity in our bodies, and if we never ground ourselves, that electricity is just always in our bodies. But if we can ground ourselves onto the earth, it helps with a lot of different health problems. So there are so many reasons to practice not wearing shoes and to slowly introduce that into your life, and eventually you'll be like my mom and I, where we just walk around all summer barefoot and walk around during the winter wearing socks, if anything, on our feet. And it's just going to make your whole kinetic chain from the ground up function so much better. So I hope this was helpful. Like this video if you did find it helpful. Leave me a comment if you have a question or comment for me, and follow along for more.